Now I will talk about chess. Chess is an abstract strategic board game and a sport designed for two players. It is one of the most common and complex games existing in human culture. Estimates of the number of legal states in chess range from 10 to the power of 43 to 10 to the power of 120. The game is accepted worldwide as both a hobby and a competitive sport. A person who plays chess professionally is called a chess player. Victory in the game is achieved when one of the kings is threatened in chess by one of the opponent's pieces, cannot eat the threatening piece, block the threat with another piece, or escape from the threat to a square where it will not be threatened. Now I will talk about basic concepts in chess. The chessboard is divided into 64 squares with 8 rows numbered from 1 to 8. The rows are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And 8 columns marked with the letters A to H. The columns are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. The squares are painted black and white alternately, or in general a light color and a dark color. All four sides of a white square border a black square, and vice versa. So the square E5 is actually bordered by 4 black squares, and the square F5 is actually bordered with 4 white squares. So we should place the board so that the rightmost square in the row closest to each player is white. So the closest row to me is the first row, and the rightmost square in the first row is white, as you can see. Now I will talk about the arrangement of the tools. we should place the tools on the board in the row closest to each player from outside to inside. Yes, from outside to inside. So actually, as I have already said, the first row is the closest row to me, so I will place the pieces on the first row. First of all, two rooks on the outermost squares. So this is the rooks, and I will place them on the outermost squares. Yes, then two knights. This is the knights, and I will place them here. Then two bishops. Those are the bishops. We'll place them here. In the two central squares remaining in the row, queen in the column 4. This is the queen, and I will place the queen in the column 4. So column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. 5, king in column 5. The king will be placed in column 5. Yes. A white queen in a white square, and a black one in a black square. So as you can see, the white queen is on the white square, and the black queen will be placed in a black square. Okay. In the second row of each side, the second row is actually the rows 2, row 2 and row 7. Yes. In the second row, we will place the pawns. The pawns for the entire white of the row. So on all 8 squares, we should place the pawns. Those are the pawns, or the soldiers. We should place them in the second row. And also in the 7th row. Yes, it is the same, so I don't want to repeat the process. Okay, now I will talk about the characteristics of the tools. We will start with the most important tool, that is of course the king. king is the most important tool on the board. It can move in any direction, straight or diagonal, one square in each direction. Okay, so from the square d4, it can move here to e3 or to d3 or to c3 or to e5. You can see that the square is e5. Yes, e and 5. Yes, the square is e5. Also to c4, and to c5, to d5, and to e5. So in total he has 8 squares that he can move from the square d5. Okay, so it moves one square in each direction, as you can see, except for the castling. The castling is a move that something like that. This is a long castling in order to protect the king. And you can do also short castling, that is that step. So in this short castling, actually the king moved 2 squares, yes, from e1 to g1, and in the long castling the king also moved 2 squares from e1 to c1. Okay, when the king is in chess position, that is in a position where the opponent can eat him in the next turn, the threatened player must change this position by moving the king, blocking the attack line or the threatening piece, or by beating the threatening piece. Okay, so when your king is threatened, you must move the king to another square that he will not be threatened by any piece of your opponent. That is the rule of the chess. Okay, in order to win the game, the player must reach a position where his opponent cannot rescue his king from the threat of chess, eat the threatening piece, or block the threat with his own piece. This state is called mate. Okay? So, in order to win the game, you must threaten the opponent's king in this way, in such a way that he cannot rescue his king. He cannot escape to another square that it is not threatened, it is not have any other square to escape from the threatening. So in this case, when your opponent's king is threatened and your opponent has no square to put the king in order not that it is not be threatened, in this case you win the game. Okay? Despite its value as the most important tool, the king's movement is relatively limited. Unlike the other tools, it is not possible to evaluate the king with points for changing tools because the king is not a tool that can be given up. But in terms of its value, in the sense of the balance of the forces and its tactical abilities in the game, it is estimated at about 2.5 points. Because the king has a limited range offensive ability, one slot in each direction, as I have already shown you, the ability is manifested mainly in advanced stages of the game, when there are not many tools left on the board. On the same scale, the rook is valued as at 5 points. The knight is valued at 3 points. And so is the bishop. The bishop is also valued at 3 points. The evaluation of the king's strength is used for tactical analysis, for evaluating position with a free king or a closed king, etc. Okay, we finished to talk about the king, the most important tool on the board. Now we'll continue to talk about the queen. This is the queen. The most powerful tool on the board is the queen. Its advantage is in the flexibility of its movement, since it can move in any straight line, column, row, or diagonal, and as many squares as it wants in the same row or diagonal. It is customary to estimate the queen at about 9 points. So the queen can move on the black diagonal. You can move to any square on the black diagonal, or you can move on the fourth row. Yes, or either you can move on the D column. Okay, so we finished to talk about the queen, and now we'll talk about the rook. The rook can only move along the columns or rows. So it can move on row 4 or on column D. Or row 4. The rooks are usually more effective when they support each other and work as a pair. A special rule was assigned to the rook in the protection of the king during the castling, as I have already explained to you. In order to protect the king, you can do the long castling, that is the long castling, or you can do the short castling in order to protect the king. It is customary to estimate it about 5 points. Okay? The next tool is the bishop. The bishop can only move diagonally. Yes, so it can move only on the black squares diagonally. Yes. The bishop is especially effective in open situations. The bishop is the only tool that is limited to one slot color and cannot switch to the other color. So that bishop can only move on the black squares. The two existing bishops together cover both colors of the board. Yes, in the game we start with two bishops that are in this place, and they actually cover both colors of the board. So that bishop's colors that bishop covers the black the white color squares, and this bishop covers the black squares. So in the event that one bishop is lost, part of the control over the board is lost. Yes? If this bishop is moved from the board, that bishop controls only the black squares, only the white squares. Yes? It is usually estimated at about 3 points. But with the development of modern chess engines, it has been proven that its value in the relative majority of the positions is estimated at 3.25. This is subject to dispute. There is also a slight advantage to the player who has two bishops against a knight and the bishops, or against two knights. So two bishops is better than two knights, and also the two bishops are better from bishop and knight. Now I'll talk about the knight. This is the knight. The knight has a spatial movement that combines straight and diagonal movement. Alternatively, its movement can be described as the letter L, rotated in different directions. So you will do 2 steps to the right side and then up, or 2 steps to the right side and down, or 2 steps down and then right, 2 steps down and then left, 2 steps left and then down, 1 step, 2 steps left and then up 1 step, 2 steps up and then 1 step left, 2 steps up and 1 step right. Okay. The advantage of the knight is that tools don't block his movement and he can jump over them. The knight is especially effective in closed situations and in the execution of a fork that is a threat to several tools at the same time. Okay, for example, if you have this situation, actually the knight threatens to hit the rook, and also the knight threatens to hit the bishop. And in this situation, for example, the knight threatens to hit each tool that is on the board. You actually can hit the rook, the 2 rooks. You also can hit the bishop. You can hit the two pawns, and you can hit the 2 knights. And also you can hit that pawn. In each move, the knight will move to a different square color. So, for example, now the knight is on a black square, and from that black square he can move in the next move to only white square, because you can move here, 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 and here. So from black square he moves to white square. And if, for example, he is in a white square, from that white square he can move to the black squares only. Okay? Here, 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 and here. it is usually estimated at about 3 points and slightly less than the bishop. As I have already said, the bishop is estimated as 3.25 in its value, so the bishop is a little bit stronger than the knight. Okay, so now we'll talk about the pawn. This is the pawn, the last in the hierarchy and the most limited in its movement, also known as soldier, can only move one square at a time and only in one direction, forward, that is to say the opposite direction to the side of the board where it starts. So if I am the white side, I can move with the pawn only forward. Okay, only forward. I can never move backward. The pawn can only move forward. This is from the white's point of view. And the forward from the black's point of view is in the opposite direction. Yes? So the black can move only forward and he can never move backwards. This move is illegal move. Okay? So, for example, in this situation, we can say that both the white pawn and the black pawn are stuck because the white pawn cannot move forward because there is a black pawn in its direction, so it cannot move, it is stuck. And the black pawn also stuck because there is a white pawn in his direction of his movement. So both of the tools are stuck. So whenever the place that the pawn could move is occupied with another tool, he is stuck, he cannot move here because the square is occupied by the knight. During the first move of the pawn, and only during this, it can move 2 squares forward or 1 square according to the player's will. Okay, so in this situation, the pawn can move 2 squares or 1 square. So only from the row 2 the pawn can move 2 squares. If he's in the row 5, he cannot move 2 squares. He can move only 1 square. Only in the beginning, when he is in the second row, he can move 2 squares. Okay? The way pawn beats is the way pawn eats or beats is different from his usual way of moving. By moving 1 square diagonally only in the direction of his progress. So in this position the white pawn can eat the black knight. That is the way that the pawn can eat the opponent's tool. Only diagonally and 1 step only. So it also can eat the knight like this. Okay? Despite being a weak tool due to its limited pieces, if it reaches the last row of the board, it becomes any other piece except for the king of the same color. So if the pawn will arrive to the last row, then it can be changed to a queen. A queen, or you can change it to a knight or bishop or rook, whatever you want. This process or this situation is called crowning. It is customary to estimate the pawn in 1 point. A special move of the pawn is en passant. En passant is a special method of capturing in chess that occurs when a pawn captures horizontally adjacent opponent pawn that has just made an initial 2 square advance. So if the white moves 2 squares, then the black can capture that pawn by doing this step. This is the en passant rule. Okay, I will repeat again. if the white does this move, then the black can capture the pawn like this. Or, for example, if the white moves with his pawn 2 steps, then the black can capture that pawn like this. So the rule ensures that the pawn cannot use its 2 square move to safely skip past an opponent pawn. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.